Okay, let's dive in. We've got this deep dive focused on a new forecast for the global preset resistors market.
That's right. It's based on insights from cognitive market research,
Right.
and it gives us a really good look at the sales revenue numbers. We've got data from 2021, projections for 2025, and then it takes us all the way out to 2033.
Okay, quite a span. And it breaks it down by region, country level too.
Exactly. Region and key countries within those regions.
So the idea is, for anyone listening, you can get up to speed pretty quickly on this specific market. Preset resistors, I have to admit, before we jump into the big numbers, maybe a quick refresher.
Huh.
What exactly are they and, why track this market?
Good question. So think of them as tiny adjustable components, sometimes like little screws or dials, right on a circuit board.
Oh, okay.
They get set to a specific resistance value and then usually stay fixed. They're crucial for things like calibrating equipment, tuning circuits, setting precise levels. You find them everywhere, really industrial controls, consumer gadgets, you name it.
So they're kind of fundamental building blocks.
Exactly. And tracking this market, well, it tells us about demand for those building blocks. It's like a proxy for activity in electronics manufacturing, where things are growing, where the demand is heating up. It signals underlying industry trends.
Got it. So these figures aren't just numbers, they reflect actual industrial activity. Okay, I'm ready. Let's start with the big picture globally.
All right, so globally, the source puts the market value at $440.003 million back in 2021. That's our starting point.
440 million. Okay.
Then the projection for 2025 is 568.178 million.
Okay, that's already a pretty decent jump in just those few years.
It is, and looking further out, the forecast sees that continuing. By 2033, it's projected to hit $947.41 million.
Wow. Okay. So we're looking at more than doubling the market size from 2021 out to 2033. What's the overall growth rate there? Like the CAGR?
Yeah, the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, globally comes in at 6.6% over that whole period.
6.6%. That sounds pretty healthy.
It signifies a solid, expanding global market. It suggests more electronics being made, more need for that fine-tuning these components provide.
Makes sense. But I bet that 6.6% isn't uniform everywhere.
Right.
How does it look when you break it down by region? Let's start with North America.
Okay, North America. In 2021, the market there was $157.257 million.
Right.
That's expected to grow to $202.044 million by 2025.
Okay.
And the projection for 2033 is $335.197 million.
So how does its growth rate compare? That global average was 6.6%.
North America's CAGR is just slightly under that at 6.532%.
Okay, still very solid growth. And within North America, the U.S. is usually dominant.
It definitely is here. The data really highlights the U.S. Its market was $105.001 million in 2021.
So a big chunk of the North American total.
Yeah, projected to hit $138.966 million in 2025 and then $237.252 million by 2033.
And the U.S. growth rate.
The U.S. CAGR is actually 6.915%.
Well, interesting. So the U.S. market is not only the biggest piece, but it's actually growing faster than the North American average and even a bit faster than the global rate.
That's right. It suggests, particularly strong demand drivers within the U.S. itself, maybe specific industries like manufacturing, tech, defense. The source doesn't spell it out, but the numbers point that way.
Right. And what about Canada and Mexico?
Canada shows steady growth, too. It started at $16.402 million in 2021, projected to $20.972 million in 2025, and $34.626 million by 2033.
Okay.
And Mexico also expanding solidly. $35.855 million in 2021, expected to reach $42.106 million in 2025, and then $63.319 million by 2033.
Right. Europe. The market there was valued at $86.901 million in 2021.
Okay, smaller than North America to start.
Yes. And projected to reach $116.136 million in 2025 and $200.19 million by 2033. And the growth rate. The CAGR for Europe.
Now, this is interesting. Europe's CAGR is 7.043%.
Oh, okay. So that's higher than North America and higher than the global average, too. I remember the notes saying the source called Europe's performance especially promising. That CAGR definitely backs that up.
It does. It points to maybe a more dynamic expansion there. Could be strong industrial sectors, maybe automotive, automation, medical tech. things needing precise calibration.
And which countries are leading the charge in Europe?
Germany is a big one, projected to grow quite significantly from about $14.9 million in 2021 to over $36 million by 2033.
Wow.
France is also a major player, moving from $14.25 million up to nearly $35 million over the same period.
Those are really substantial numbers for Germany and France. What about others?
The UK is projected to more than double, from around $7.2 million to nearly $16 million by 2033. Italy, similarly, from $6.5 million to about $14.6 million.
Okay.
Russia also shows strong growth, from $12.175 million up to $26.085 million. And then you have others contributing solidly, too. Denmark, for instance, expected to hit $6.1 million.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Contributing solidly too. Denmark, for instance, expected to hit $6.1 million by 2033. Switzerland grows from about $5.4 million to $13.8 million. Luxembourg from $3.7 million to $8.7 million.
Right.
And the rest of Europe category also more than doubles from just under $10 million to over $21.6 million. So that 7% plus CAGR really reflects broad strength across the continent.
Yeah, fascinating to see Europe actually outpacing the global average there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's head over to Asia Pacific, APAC. How does that region stack up?
So APAC, it was the third largest market in 2021, sitting at $73.304 million.
Okay.
It's projected to rise to $93.238 million by 2025, and then expected to hit $153.103 million by 2033.
Still significant growth, but how's the rate? The CAGR for APAC.
The APAC CAGR is 6.396%.
Okay, so slightly lower than the global average and a bit lower than Europe and North America. But APAC is huge and diverse, right? What about the key economies there?
Exactly. It's very diverse. China, obviously manufacturing giant, grows from $17.285 million in 2021 to nearly $36 million by 2033.
Doubling, roughly.
Yeah. Japan, a more mature market, grows from $14.15 million to just over $30 million.
Also doubling.
India shows strong expansion, from $8.9 million to $17.1 million. South Korea, big in electronics, grows from about $4.4 million to nearly $9.9 million.
So solid growth across the board, maybe slightly different paces compared to, say, the leaders in Europe.
That seems fair to say, based on these numbers. The source also gives us some 2033 projections for others. Australia forecasted around $7.8 million. Singapore, around $8 million.
Okay.
Southeast Asia, specifically mentioned at just over $3 million. And Taiwan, very key for components, grows from $2.2 million in 2021 to about $4.25 million by 2033.
Right.
And then the rest of APAC's category is projected to reach nearly $37 million by 2033. So yeah, while the overall regional CAGR is a tad lower, the sheer volume of growth, especially from China, Japan, India, means APAC adds a massive chunk to that global total.
Absolutely. Okay, you mentioned Europe having especially promising performance, but I think the notes mentioned another region highlighted that way too.
That's right, and that would be South America.
Ah, okay. What are the numbers there?
South America started at $39.82 million in 2021. Projected to hit $53.466 million in 2025.
Okay.
And reach $92.563 million by 2033.
And the growth rate? What's the CAGR for South America?
Get ready for this one. The CAGR for South America is 7.101%.
Whoa. Okay, 7.1%. That is interesting. That's the highest regional growth rate we've seen. So South America, according to this forecast, is set to be the fastest growing region for preset resistors.
Exactly. The source flagged it as promising, and that CAGR confirms it. Strongest growth trajectory.
What do you think could be behind that? I mean, such strong projected growth.
Well, the source doesn't explicitly state the why, but a rate like that suggests something dynamic is happening. It could be, rapid industrialization kicking in, maybe expanding consumer electronics markets, perhaps significant investment in sectors like automotive or infrastructure that need these components.
Right, makes sense. Does the country data back that up?
It does. Brazil shows a really big jump from $15.57 million in 2021, projected out to $34.387 million by 2033.
Huge increase.
Argentina also shows very strong growth, forecast to go from about $7.97 million up to $20.75 million.
Okay, those two alone represent major expansion.
Definitely key drivers. The source also mentions Colombia and Peru showing promise, and Chile specifically is projected to grow from $1.668 million to $4.35 million by 2033.
Hmm.
And the rest of South America more than doubles too, from $7.8 million to nearly $18.8 million. So yeah, even though it's starting from a smaller base than, say, North America, the rate of growth is projected to be the highest.
That high CGR in South America is definitely a key takeaway.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears to the Middle East. What's the outlook there?
The Middle East market is projected to grow from $9.548 million in 2021 to $18.948 million by 2033.
Okay, doubling over the period. And the growth rate, the CAGR?
For the Middle East, it's 6.079%.
Right, so that's the lowest regional CAGR we've discussed. A smaller market overall, growing a bit slower than the global average, but still, consistent upward movement.
Exactly. Modest but steady growth. Saudi Arabia is projected to go from about $3 million to $5.56 million. Turkey from around $1.8 million to $3.56 million.
And the source also mentioned UAE, Egypt, Qatar showing steady growth.
Yes. Flagged as smaller contributors but maintaining that consistent growth trend.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the Middle East category also grows from about $2.8 million to $6.1 million. So it's positive expansion, just not at the pace of some other regions.
Got it. Okay, last stop on our regional tour, Africa.
Africa. The market there was valued at $73.172 million in 2021.
Okay, quite substantial.
Projected to grow to $91.477 million in 2025, and then $147.418 million by 2033.
And the CAGR for Africa?
Africa's CAGR is 6.146%.
Okay, so just a fraction higher than the Middle East, also below the global average, but still represents doubling the market size over the period. How does it break down within Africa?
The source points to Nigeria and South Africa as really significant markets there. By 2033, Nigeria is forecast to reach $45.685 million.
Wow.
And South Africa is projected to hit $45.818 million, almost identical size by then.
Those are pretty large numbers within the African context. What might that point to?
It suggests, considerable market size and ongoing growth potential in those key economies, likely tied to developing manufacturing bases, electronics assembly, maybe infrastructure projects requiring these sorts of components.
Makes sense. And the rest of the continent?
The rest of Africa also shows healthy growth. It's projected to expand from about $25 million in 2021 to nearly $56 million by 2033. So overall, Africa's growth is solid, maybe not the fastest rate, but contributing exactly. And while North America stays the biggest single region, and APAC is this massive, diverse engine of growth, the data really does highlight that, extra momentum potentially in South America and Europe. Understanding those regional nuances is key, right? Because it hints at different drivers, different opportunities in those places.
Absolutely. It really helps you visualize where demand for these fundamental electronic components is expected to climb. And that gives clues about what's happening underneath in manufacturing, electronics, maybe automotive, industrial sectors.
Yeah, it turns those millions of dollars into a story about activity in a specific part of the global electronics supply chain.
It really does. And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? Looking at this strong global growth, but especially those high rates projected for South America and Europe, what kinds of specific applications or industries do you, the listener, think might be really pushing that demand for preset?
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Do you, the listener, think might be really pushing that demand for preset resistors in those particular regions? And why might South America be forecast to grow so much faster than, say, the Middle East? Definitely something to ponder after digging into these numbers. Okay, let's unpack this. We're taking a deep dive today into something pretty small but with a huge impact, the preset resistor market.
That's right. And we're drawing on insights from Market Pulse, which is backed by cognitive market research data. Our goal here is really to, cut through the technical jargon and look at what's driving this market, what challenges it's facing, and how it's adapting.
It really feels like one of those components that works behind the scenes, doesn't it? Hidden away, but totally essential.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it from super precise scientific gear to the controls in your car or even just an old radio. They allow that fine-tuning.
That calibration step.
Exactly, that final little adjustment.
So what is pushing the demand? What are the key drivers the research points to?
Well, the report highlights a few major things. First, just the fundamental need for accurate electronic control.
Okay.
Devices needing really precise calibration. Think medical instruments, high-end audio amps. Getting those values spot on is critical.
Look, there's no room for error.
Precisely. Preset resistors give you that final tweak. Second, the sheer volume of consumer electronics.
Ah,
TVs, radios, home appliances, all those portable gadgets,
yeah.
millions upon millions being made, they often need internal calibration points.
Makes sense. Huge numbers.
It creates this massive baseline demand. Then number 3 is industrial automation.
Okay, also.
Automated machinery, control systems, they depend heavily on accurate feedback, signal calibration. Preset resistors are used there for setting limits or adjusting sensors.
So keeping factories running smoothly.
And lastly, automotive electronics. Cars today are just packed with electronics.
Tell me about it.
ECUs, engine control units, dashboard displays, sensors everywhere. Preset resistors help adjust voltages or calibrate those instruments.
Wow, okay. So they're pretty foundational across a lot of areas, but technology moves fast. What are the roadblocks, the challenges?
Good question. It's definitely not all smooth sailing. A major challenge is that constant push towards miniaturization and integration.
Right, smaller everything.
Exactly. As more functions get crammed onto single chips, ICs, systems on chip, sometimes there's just no space or need for a separate, discrete resistor. They get designed out.
So the drive for smaller, smarter tech is kind of a threat.
It puts pressure on, for sure. Another issue is their limited lifespan and potential for drift.
Drift, meaning?
They have moving parts, unlike fist resistors. So over time, mechanical wear, maybe some dust gets in, or even temperature changes.
Yeah.
It can cause the set resistance value to shift a bit.
Ah, and that affects accuracy.
Definitely, which can be a problem in sensitive applications. Also, the fact that they need manual adjustment.
Right, someone has to actually turn it.
Yeah, that adds a step in manufacturing. And if the component is sealed inside a device, it makes adjustments later quite tricky, sometimes impossible. Logistical headache.
Not very automation friendly for the setting part.
Not for the setting, no. And lastly, their physical structure. They can be a bit fragile compared to solid-state components. Vulnerable to vibration, physical shock, maybe mishandling during assembly.
Okay, so integration pressure, potential drift, manual adjustments, and physical fragility. How's the market fighting back or, staying relevant? What are the positive trends?
Well, despite those challenges, it is adapting. One key trend is the development of multi-turn and higher precision versions.
Okay, what does that mean?
These allow for much finer, more stable adjustments. Think aerospace, high-end medical devices, where even tiny drift is unacceptable. They cater to that need for extreme precision.
So innovating for the high-end market.
Exactly. They're also embracing surface mount technology, SMT.
Oh, so they can be machine placed.
Right. This lets them fit into modern automated PCB assembly lines much better and helps with miniaturization, too. It addresses some of that integration pressure.
Clever. What else?
We're seeing a rise in customized solutions. Manufacturers working directly with clients to create preset resistors for specific niche needs, maybe unusual shapes or resistance values, or tolerance to harsh environments like for certain RF circuits or military gear.
Tailor-made components.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And finally, they're still incredibly popular in the DIY electronics and education world.
Oh, yeah. I remember using those in kits.
Exactly. They're cheap, easy to get, and that hands-on adjustment is great for learning and prototyping. They haven't lost that foothold.
So it's quite a picture. Innovating for precision, adopting modern manufacturing, customizing for niches, and still being a go-to for learners, from critical systems to hobby benches.
It really shows their sort of quiet resilience, doesn't it? Providing that vital tweak in countless devices, sophisticated or simple, and helping train the next generation of engineers, too.
Absolutely. And again, these insights are drawn from that cognitive market research data. It really makes you pause and think, doesn't it? Considering how common yet unseen they are.
Yeah.
How many preset resistors might be quietly doing their job inside the tech you use every single day?
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.